Well, welcome everyone. It's great to see you all here in person, and those of you who are joining us on the live stream or the replay, great to be together. I'm Dallas, of course, the community pastor here at Generations Church. Have you given any thought or consideration to the supply chain? Wah, 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 wah. Yeah. You know what? How many of you really even know what the supply chain is? Never mind that it's in crisis, you know? Yeah, some of you do. Some of you are aware of that. Okay. Supply chain to me was like when you're playing Risk and you've got your leftover armies in Western Europe, and you're wondering if you can move them in one move to Alaska, or do you have to move them one country at a time? That to me, it was the supply chain. You know, that's what I'm thinking of. But in our world, if there's goods that are manufactured, the questions are, is there a container available to ship those goods in? Is there a ship with available room on it for that container? Can the ship get into the port that is both getting that container and delivering that container to? Is there a truck and a driver available to take that container to the warehouse or the distribution center? Those are a lot of touch points in our supply chain. And if you've watched any of the news lately, you know that our supply chain is a little bit in crisis. It's clogged up. And then you have a container ship that gets stuck in a storm and ends up losing over 100 containers over the side, and they start floating away in the ocean, and then this one ends up on fire just off the coast of Victoria. I mean, it can get messy. We just received this news this week that the remaining chairs, we bought some more chairs for the lower auditorium here. They're on order. They're coming. We just received news this week that they are delayed because of shipping congestion. At least we weren't being told that they're in a container that's floating past Port Hardy right now, but thankful for that. But you know what? There are thousands of products that are washing up on shore on the northern end of Vancouver Island. Those products are not going to get to where they were supposed to get to. And so there's a shortage. And, you know, for some of us, this may be the first time that we start to wonder if and how the supply chain crisis will affect us. Unless you lived through World War II, and some of you might remember that, you're probably like me thinking the supply chain has something to do with a game of Risk. You know, it's like, what is going on in our world? How is this going to affect us? And for most of us, at this point, the supply chain is going to add up to some inconvenience. You might have to wait for the parcel you ordered a little bit longer than you normally would. The shelf in the store might be empty for a little longer. But eventually, you know, the hope is that the product is going to end up in that shelf. And you know what? We can all have a great laugh at the great toilet paper run of 2020. You know, like this is classic. And obviously, a lot of people were fearful of not having enough toilet paper, and so they emptied the shelves. But all of this tends to add up to a question that comes back to us is there enough? Will there be enough? And you know what? The toilet paper crisis is funny, but there are actually a lot bigger stakes that are happening right now, like the housing crisis we're in. And I know that's affecting some of you because we've been praying for you. And as I've been preparing for this message, for that reason, I've approached it, and I am approaching it with a little bit of fear and trembling because I know how this is affecting some of us. The desperation for housing and for food is serious. That's a serious thing. I don't know what your desperate situation is, but I know many of you have them. I know many of you are in the midst of them. We're concluding our series called Staying Up in a Down World, and in many ways, it is a down time right now. And I honestly, as I reflect on this, I would say it is the most down time that I've experienced in my lifetime. My dad's birthday was yesterday. Now, he's been in heaven for many years, but he was born in 1917. So if he was alive today, he'd be 104. But I know that in his lifetime, when you think of it, he experienced a lot of down times in the world. The Great Depression, the World War II. But you know what? In my generation, this is one of the most down times we've experienced. I love how authentic the Bible is. It includes everything from the most amazing times to incredibly down times. And one of those down times is recorded in just 7 verses in the Old Testament book called 2 Kings, chapter 4. And it recalls the experience of one particular woman who was having a very down time. So 2 Kings, kind of the middle of the Old Testament, first third of the Bible. It says this in 2 Kings chapter 4. It says, one day, the widow of one of Elisha's fellow prophets came to Elisha and cried out to him, "My husband who served you is dead, and you know how he feared the Lord. But now a creditor has come, threatening to take my 2 sons as slaves." Well, that is a down time. That is a desperate place. And you need to remember a couple things about this widow's situation. Back then, there were not many employment opportunities for women. If you were a woman, you were either looked after by your family or you got married and were looked after by your husband. Those were kind of the best options you had because employment opportunities were not for you as a woman. And of course, when your husband died, if you were married, your income stopped. And there was no social supports back then. So you can just see how this widow ended up in this desperate place. And on top of that, she was in debt. Back then, if you were in debt and the creditors came, you know what? They could take whatever they wanted to pay off that debt. And in fact, if you had children, as this woman had 2 sons, they could take the children and either turn around and sell them into slavery to pay off the debt, or they could make those children work as slaves until the debt was paid. I mean, it was brutal. But that's the situation that this woman, this widow, found herself in. It was a desperate, desperate situation. And she lived in a nation at that time that was not godly. But she and her husband were. And she made that, you can tell what's kind of going on, a hint of what's going on in her mind. When she comes to Elisha, she says, "And you know how he feared the Lord." In other words, we're living in this nation that is not serving God right now, but we serve God. And Elisha, why am I in this desperate situation? Why has this situation We fear God. We have served you. And yet I've ended up in this desperate place. You know, there's a lot of grief in our world right now. There's a lot of grief among those who even follow Jesus. And you know what? Being a follower of Jesus doesn't shield you from hardships, from sickness, and even death. Now, isn't that encouraging? However, being a follower of Jesus puts you in relationship with the one who is a miracle worker, who is a way maker. And you know what? The Bible is full of miracles. Miracles always happen when there is a desperate situation. I like how Pastor Darcy put it a while back. He said this: the seed of a miracle is always planted in the dirt of a problem. We've got a desperate situation. We have an opportunity for a miracle. And you know what? Some of you God-honoring people need to hear this. Some of you faithful men and women of God need to hear this. Some of you passionate young people need to hear this morning. That you're not in a desperate situation because God has forgotten about you. You're not in a desperate situation because God has abandoned you. These things happen to us. Sometimes they happen to us out of consequence to decisions we make, out of consequence to sin, out of consequence to disobedience and rebellion or ungodly and unwise choices. All of those things can put us into desperate situations. And you know what? In this case, this woman ended up in debt. And sometimes we end up in debt because we've made bad choices or we don't manage or steward our finances well. And we don't have time to get into that this morning and talk about good decisions on finances and budgeting and getting out of debt. And, you know, there is opportunity in the days to come, I believe, that we're going to have something to offer you in this area. But some of you are in a desperate situation like this woman who feared God and served him. This woman was in debt. The Bible doesn't tell us how she got into debt, and I think that's the point. All of us can end up there either through our bad choices or uncontrollable circumstances, stuff that happens to us. But I'm here to remind you this morning that a desperate situation is an opportunity for a miracle. The seed of a miracle is always planted in the dirt of a problem. The one step this woman takes is that she cries out to one of the great prophets in the Bible, Elisha. And she says this, Elisha responds, "What can I do to help you? Tell me, what do you have in the house?" Well, strange question. What do you have in the house? Well, nothing at all except a flask of olive oil, she says. Elisha, I've got nothing left. They've come, they've cleaned me out. They've taken everything. And I've got nothing left, and they're coming to take the only thing I have left, my 2 sons. And yeah, I've got this little flask of oil, but I don't even have salad to put it on. You know, I can't even make a salad with this oil. I have nothing. But actually, she did have something. But in her eyes, it was nothing. Friends, don't diminish what you have. What you have is not nothing. Don't you love those double negatives? What you have is not nothing. My apologies, Heather, as a teacher. You have something. You have something. It may be small. It may be seemingly insignificant, but you have something. And Elisha is pointing this woman to see what she had. But in the desperateness of her situation, what she had was not enough in her eyes. And here's the battle that all of us will face or are facing. You may have faced it or you will face it in the future. Do you see what you lack or do you see what you have? And it's a battle. God often does the extravagant through what seems like nothing. And that's why don't diminish what you have. God often does the extravagant through what seems like nothing. And one of the amazing things I love about living on this beautiful island is walking through the forest. Especially the older the forest, the bigger the trees, the more amazed I am. And man, I just love it. How many love that? You love doing that? And you know, there's just something about walking among these giants of fir and cedar and hemlock. But what amazes me and continues to amaze me, if the fir tree, for example, has a 7-inch fir cone can produce up to a 7 millimeter, let's put it that way, 7 millimeter cone can produce, 7D? Let's get it right, 7 centimeters. Let's have a lesson on the metric system here, eh? 7 centimeter fir cone can produce up to 100 1-centimeter seeds. And each of these 1-centimeter seeds can turn into a giant fir. Just think about that for a second. God has created the capacity within a 1-centimeter seed to turn into one of those giants that we can't even hug. It's so big. It absolutely astounds me every time I think about it. And how many times has God repeated this principle in creation? He's created these small things that produce big things. And I think it just points to us time and time again that there's nothing insignificant when God is in the equation. When he's involved with things, it doesn't matter how small it is. It doesn't matter how seemingly insignificant it is. If God's in the equation, then he can take what is seemingly nothing and do something extravagant with it. And God often does the extravagant through what seems like nothing. So don't diminish what you have. Don't diminish what you have. And you know what? You're going to get real uncomfortable right now. I'll just give you a warning. There's no other principle in the Bible that illustrates this truth like the principle of the tithe. The tithe, very simply, is God's claim on what he's provided for us. It's his way of providing financially for his mission in the world through the church. Tithe literally means 10%. And did you ever wonder why God just didn't set up a discipleship fee like, hey, $10,000, done? If he did, he just eliminated most of us, probably. It would supply a lot of provision, but it would rule out most of us. Everyone can give 10% of something. It's amazing. Don't diminish what you have. When I was a child, way back when, I think my allowance at one time maybe got raised to 50 cents. And here I was as a child receiving my 50-cent allowance, but I was privileged to be able to give 5 cents as my tithe. What's 5 cents? You know what? 5 cents is as significant as $500. It just depends if you've received 50 cents or $5,000. It is the same percentage. And why do you think God chose 10% and not 90%? He could have set it at whatever he wanted. And I believe it points to this truth that God often does the extravagant through what seems like nothing. Don't diminish what you have. Don't diminish what you have. This young widow was seeing what she lacked and wasn't seeing what she had. Elijah tells her what to do next, and Elijah said, in verse 3, he says, borrow as many empty jars as you can from your friends and neighbors. Then go into your house with your sons and shut the door behind you. Pour olive oil from your flask into the jars, setting the jars aside as they are filled. Just try as best you can. Put yourself in her shoes. He went to this man of God for help in the desperate situation. You want me to do what? Empty jars, Elisha? I think you got a few empty jars up here. You know, like, what are my friends and neighbors going to think? Can you imagine going to ask your neighbors, hey, you got any empty jars? And all your neighbors know that you're in debt and they've cleared you out. What are you going to do with the empty jars? You're going to sell them to try and pay off your debt? Why do you need empty jars? How does she answer that question? Why is God responding to this desperate situation in this way? You know, could God have caused gold coins to fall from the sky and fall all around her and that she could just pick them up? Yeah. God can do anything. He could have done it that way, but he didn't choose to do it that way. He can provide for us in any way he wants to. However, what he loves to do is to partner with you. Even when it comes to something miraculous, he loves to partner with you. He loves to work inside of you. He loves to engage you and get you involved in what he's doing. He loves to give you the opportunity to grow your faith. He loves to test you, to show you where your trust level is with him. He loves to test your obedience. He's given us a free will, and his partnership with us gives us the opportunity to do it his way, even when it doesn't make sense. It's not easy. And you know what? It's a natural reaction when you're in a desperate situation to see what you lack and not what you have. But God loves to partner with you, even when it comes to the miraculous. He loves to partner with us. The young widow is standing in her house with her 2 sons and a room full of empty jars and this small flask of oil. She's made it to that point. Can you imagine What a crazy moment that must have been, holding that flask of oil and a house full of empty jars. But she had faith. It says she did what she was told. Her sons brought her many jars, and she began to pour, and she filled one after another. Soon every container was filled to the brim. "Bring me another jar," she said to one of her sons. "There aren't any more." He told her, and then the olive oil stopped flowing. Wow. Wow. God's abundance often follows our faith. God could have just done it. He could have just done it. He could have just provided for her. But he loves to partner with us. He responds to our faith, our obedience. It baffles me, it boggles my mind that the God of the universe wants to partner with me. The one who created me wants me involved in what he's doing. It is absolutely amazing and incredible that he wants me involved even in the miraculous of what he's doing. Imagine if this woman would have only gathered a few jars. But she had the faith, and she responded to the instruction, and she filled her house with empty jars and began to pour. And when she told the man of God what had happened, he said to her, "Now sell the olive oil and pay your debts, and there will be enough money left over to support you and your sons." Wow. Not only was there enough to pay off the debt, there was enough for her to live off of. You know, in desperate times it's common to see what you lack, not what you have. But God's kingdom operates on generosity because it's who he is. And everything we have comes from him. He's given us everything. And he asks you, will you pour out what little you have? God's abundance often follows our faith. I think, all of us want to be generous. I really believe we do. But oftentimes we tend to get it backwards, especially when we're in a desperate situation. We want God to provide for us, and then we will be generous. But it doesn't work that way with God. He wants to see if we trust him. Do we trust him? Or are we looking at what we're hoping is enough? Is there enough? You're not this widow. I'm not this widow. You're not me. I'm not you. And you know what? This looks different for all of us. What does emptying, or what does gathering, first of all, what does gathering empty jars look like in your life? What does gathering empty jars look like in your life? It'll look different for you than it does for me. What does starting to pour from what little you have look like in your life? I've told this before to the church that I was not a generous person. My middle name is Troy. Any Troys out there? was actually called Troy for the first 10 years of my life. And then I decided I want to go to my first name, Dallas Troy. One of the first passwords I came up with when the internet came along was Tightwad Troy. Okay, I'm not very creative either. I wasn't generous and I wasn't very creative, but it was a label actually I gave myself. Nobody gave that to me. I gave that to myself. Tightwad Troy. But you know what? God started working on my heart. And I wish I had time to tell you the many things that he challenged me with. And it's taken time. It's taken years. Many tests. Many opportunities when there didn't seem to be enough, that he came along and he asked me to give. Sometimes I didn't. But sometimes I did. And you know, every time I did, there was a response by him. Sometimes it was soon to the giving moment, and sometimes it was down the road. But in the long time of my life, he's done a work inside of me, and I'm not who I was. Ask my wife. And I've seen miracles. Financial miracles. I've seen physical miracles. I've seen miracles in me and around me. And just by the way, I've changed my password a long time ago, okay? So don't try that out on anything you might see. God's abundance often follows our faith. Can we just pause there for a second? I just want to take a few minutes and just talk to you about giving. Biblically, there's three kinds of gifts that are found in the Bible. There's three types of giving. There is the tithe that we mentioned. There's benevolence that Pastor Darcy's mentioned already. And there's offering. Those three different types of gifts are all different, and they all have different purposes and different, they look different. And if you're new to giving, if this is something like Dallas, you are talking like a different language. I would challenge you to start with the tithe. Now you're saying 10%. 10%. And it might seem like a lot, but I just hear me for a second. To me, the tithe is a simple place to start. It's an easy one in the sense that it's 10%. You don't have to think about it. How much is coming in? If you make $10, it's $1. If you make $10,000, it's $1,000. It's simple. You don't have to think about it too much. You have to do math a little bit. But you know, Heather and I chose a long time ago to live off of the 90% of what God has given us. We've chosen a long time ago. And you know what? Every month, 10% isn't a lot of money. But month after month, year after year, it's significant. But we chose long ago, this is just what we do. God, we believe that you're asking us to tithe. We're choosing to live off of 90%. And let me tell you, there was times, like some of you are experiencing right now, and some of you have known in the past, where you didn't know if you'd make it on that 90%. But we made the decision to tithe. If tithe is a foundation in your life already, there are two opportunities for you to continue to grow in generosity, and it's with benevolence and offering. And you've heard about benevolence this morning. To me, these are more difficult. These are more complicated because the question becomes, well, how much? Tithe, 10%. Got it. Simple. Benevolence, above the tithe. How much? And especially when it comes to benevolence, we tend to give according to the need of what we see around us, and there's incredible need. And you know what? You want to just give to meet that need, but the reality is that the need around us is beyond any one of us. The need in this world, you can give it all, but the need will still be there. So you need to know what to give. And it requires you asking the one who provides to you, the one who you know, who you trust, and who gives everything to you. And so it's a matter of asking God, how much? And you know, with benevolence in particular, as Pastor Darcy said, it's been something we've practiced as a church for many years. It used to be a loose change offering is what they call it. So whatever you got in your pocket, you just put in the offering plate. Well, there's a couple problems with that right now. Number one, we're not passing the offering plate. Number two, I don't know about you, but it's very rare for me to have change in my pocket anymore. You know, this summer I ended up, somebody gave me some change, and I'm like, it feels strange. What do I do with this in my pocket, you know? And you feel like, do you really want to give it to the guy behind the counter or the gal behind the counter? And so this is a strange experience, but I don't carry a lot of loose change. So the loose change when it comes to benevolence is like, oh no, I just can't give what I have on me because it's zero. But I have a debit card. It requires me to ask, Lord, do you want me to give to benevolence? If it's a no, sometimes it's no. No, I don't want you to give this month. Okay. But if it's a yes, well then it's, well, how much? And it requires this relationship with God. This communication between Him and a trust in Him that He is taking care of you. And the offering is the same as the question is how much? And I love the example in Scripture, and you can look in 2 Corinthians 8 and 9. Just read through those chapters. The example of an offering is like a seed. And the illustration that's given is you sow the seed, and that seed multiplies. That seed produces something. So go home and read it. We don't have time to get into it. There's also a YouVersion steady reading plan that's called The Law of the Harvest that I sent out yesterday. Those of you who are my friends on YouVersion, if you're not my friend, you can become my friend. Just send me a friend request. And we're going to do this together, but if you want to do it on your own, check it out on YouVersion reading app. And just kind of goes into this law of the harvest and sowing the seed. And man, I really wish I had more time, but we don't. Different ways to give, biblically different types of gifts, and they all mean something, and they all pull on you and I to teach us in relationship to God who is our provider, God from whom everything comes. I choose to acknowledge that He is my provider, and so I will give as He has given everything to me. He's given everything. He's a generous God, and I want to reflect who He is by how I live my life. The question right now is, what do you have? What do you have? The seed of a miracle is always planted in the dirt of a problem. You're in a desperate situation, and the tendency is to look at what you lack. Please. Why I hesitate to say that is because in no way is this a judgment. In no way is this guilt. It's just a truth that's hard, but it's a truth that you and I need to grapple with. The seed of a miracle is always planted in the dirt of a problem. You're in a desperate situation. It's an opportunity for a miracle. God often does the extravagant through what seems like nothing. Don't diminish what you have. It may seem insignificant, but don't diminish what you have. Because if God can grow a huge Douglas fir out of a 1 centimeter seed, there's nothing he can't do. God loves to partner with you. He wants to engage you. He wants to get you involved. He wants relationship with you. Even when it comes to the miraculous, and his abundance often follows our faith, follows our obedience. There's an offering opportunity this morning. You're not here in person. If you're watching online, you may not know this, but if you're here in person, it doesn't take much to realize that there's needed repair on our building. If you've parked in the lower parking lot, you realize that there's needed repair on our building. And you know what? This project, we keep coming up against obstacles and delays that just cause our progress to stall. However, the church leadership, pastors and board, want to put into action the principles of what we've just talked about. The obvious is the desperate need in front of us. But what little we have, we want to pour out instead. And we have some global workers in a small country, island nation of Vanuatu, that are in need of a multi-purpose building. And Dave and Julie Wood have been a part of this church they've served this church for many years, a while back, and they're now in Vanuatu, and they're part of our global missions team that we support every month. And I just want to take a short 2-minute to watch this video and what Dave will talk about.
Hello, we're Dave and Julie Wood, and we're global workers with the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada here in the country of Vanuatu in the South Pacific.
God has called us to minister in Vanuatu to primarily the people who make the capital city of Port Vila their home. Together, Julie and I lead the local English-speaking assembly, International Christian Church, or ICC.
I lifted up in all the earth, who you are. I lifted up in all the earth, who you are.
We are here today, and it is also here that we will be building our new multi-purpose building. Our tent is reaching the end of its life, and we are in need. We plan to build a facility that will serve the community as a church, a meeting hall, a gymnasium, and a refuge of safety when the cyclones come. We are overjoyed to report that the local church here has now raised over 60,000 Canadian dollars towards the building project. They have sacrificed and given from what they have. But the truth is that without international support, we would never be able to build this building. So far, We've been blessed to see churches and individuals in Canada give 150,000 Canadian dollars towards this church, and for that we are truly thankful. The steel has been ordered, and we are waiting for its arrival so that construction will start. Now, we just need to complete the project, an additional $100,000 Canadian, and that needs to be raised to reach our goal, but we are confident that God will supply. We are so pleased with what God is doing. Lives are being changed. People are being reached for Jesus from every country of the world. Would you join us in this venture? Would you join us in this dream? God bless you all.
We want to pour out and fill their jars. And every dollar that you give over the next month, over the month of November, every dollar you give is going to be matched up to $5,000. So right away, you multiply your gift. And just on your envelope or online, make a note of that it's for the Vanuatu project. And if you can't spell Vanuatu, just put van. All right, we'll know what you're talking. The van project. We're not buying a van. We're supporting the project in Vanuatu. And that's going to happen throughout November. As we pour out, we believe for the miracle of provision that we need for our own building. And I'm not telling you to give. In a way, I'm not even asking you to give. I'm asking you to ask God. I'm asking you to go to Him. I'm asking you to engage Him on if this is something that you need to be a part of, that you need to respond to. And He will tell you. He will show you. Don't look at your lack. Look at what you have. And whatever it is, however seemingly insignificant it might seem to you, remember, there's nothing insignificant in God when He's involved. What's your need for a miracle this morning? We've talked a lot about finances, but you know what? This story talked about provision. But that may not be your need for a miracle, but it's a need for a miracle. You may be in a desperate situation. I don't know what your desperate situation is. I know there's a lot of them. I'm the community pastor. Sometimes the front line of my job is I hear the desperate situations. I was on a phone call yesterday. Desperate situation. I had zero answers. Zero things, almost zero that I could provide other than I'll pray for you, I'll meet with you, we can help you out. But bottom line, this woman needs a miracle. Needs a miracle in her desperate situation. And I know many of you here in this room, many of you listening online are in the exact same spot. What is the miracle you need? And if you're in a desperate situation in need of miracle, we want to pray for you. And this is the wonderful thing about us as a church is that it's not me as a pastor trying to figure this out on our own. It's not any one of us on our own. We're all together on this. And we've got a wonderful prayer team that week after week, they believe in the power of prayer, and they believe in the power of God for miracles. And if you've been in any prayer meeting recently, you know that that's one of the prayers that is prayed probably most of the time is, God, we need a breakthrough. We need a breakthrough. We need a breakthrough of miracles in people's lives. God, you are the God of miracles. And we're going to sing this song in a moment. You are the way maker. You're the miracle worker. We believe that. And Jesus, we need you. We need you. And if you're in that situation, it's a privilege for us as brothers and sisters to gather around you and pray together. We're not the answer. We don't have the answer. But we can go together to the one who has the answer. We can call out, even as this woman called out to Elisha and said, hey, I'm in this desperate situation. We can call out to Jesus together because he's the one that hears us. Jesus, I'm in this desperate situation. I need you. And I don't know how Jesus is going to respond. I know he's going to respond. I don't know what that miracle is going to look like, but I know there's going to be a miracle. What's your need for a miracle this morning? And if you're online, opportunity to pray with those who are online this morning. Just indicate that by responding to the prayer link there. And if you're in a house, our prayer team's going to be available. And I just want you to respond. And this might be the first bit of pouring out. Maybe you've never responded. Maybe you've never asked for prayer before. Maybe that's the first little trickle of oil coming out of your little flask. Is to just ask somebody to pray with you. Can I ask you to stand together? Let's just close in prayer before we sing this last song. Jesus, we just want to acknowledge the tension we live in between our desperate need, Lord, and the invitation to partner with you, the invitation to pour out of what little we seem to have. And Lord, that pull that's there, and Jesus, you know that tension, that you invite us to pour out a little bit of our time. You invite us to pour out a little bit of our resources. You invite us to pour out a little bit of our lives as an act of faith. And Jesus, I acknowledge the tension that is there. And I ask for courage, Lord. I ask for boldness. I ask for strength to take that step of generosity, whatever that looks like, to take that first step of gathering empty jars, whatever that looks like in my life, Jesus. Give me the boldness to take that step of gathering jars. And Father, give me the boldness. Holy Spirit, give me the boldness, the courage to begin to pour out of what little I have. Jesus, I want to thank you for giving everything, for holding nothing back, for giving your very life for me, and for giving your very life for each and every person that is listening or watching this morning. And Lord, I pray for those in desperate situations, Lord, that you're going to come with a miracle. Lord, I pray for those who are in a desperate situation who don't know you, who are separate from you. And if that's you listening to this, the invitation is there. Jesus is saying, hey, I'm here. You call out to me, I'll answer. You call out to me, I'm there. Get to know who I am. Come to me. Surrender to me. This woman, she feared God. She still was in a desperate situation, but she was in relationship to the God she served, and she could call out to him, and that's where the answer came from. And the invitation is there. If you're apart from God, you can know him. If you don't know who Jesus is, you can know him today. And call out to him. And he will answer. He will respond. So Jesus, I thank you that through this message right now, whether you're listening to it live or later, Jesus, you're responding to that person. You're responding to that person. Lord, as they cry out to you, as they call out to you, Jesus, make yourself known. I know you're there. I know you're there. And you're wanting to respond. Thank you, Jesus, for the connections that are being made in you and with you in relationship to you, even at this moment. Jesus, I thank you for the miracles that you are doing, you're beginning even right now, as people make the choice to begin to pour, begin to look to you, Jesus, in the desperateness of this moment, the desperateness of this time. Jesus, I thank you for the miracles that are happening and are going to happen to your name, to your glory, to your honor. In Jesus' name, amen, amen. Let's sing together the truth of this song, that it would just resonate in your heart. Let the truth of it sink in. Grab a hold of it, friends. Grab a hold of the truth. He is the way maker. He is the miracle worker. Let's sing it together.
Working in our midst, I worship you, I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you, I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. I worship you, yeah, I worship you, 'cause you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. One more time, sing that with me. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 Even when I don't feel it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. That is who you are. That is who you are. We believe that. That is who you are. 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 All together, let's sing this. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. 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 That is who you are.
For joining with Generations Church and our worship experience today. If you need prayer, our hosts would love to pray with you. You can just press the prayer button and they will just stay online for a little while longer. And may God bless you and your families this week in whatever season you find yourself in. Take care.